Death at Devil's Bridge. Chapter 6. 'Tis not wise to change a cottage in possession for a kingdom in hope. English proverb. It was a Thursday evening late in September, and the sun was dropping westward. Lawrence Quipley, on his way home from his evening work at Bishop's Keep, thought to himself that the next few days, the weekend of the annual harvest fete and the grand motor car exhibition and the balloon chase, looked to be fair. As he came up the dusty path, the kitchen door opened as Amelia stepped out. "Oh, Lawrence, look at the sunset," she cried. "Isn't it beautiful?" Lawrence turned to look over his shoulder, then turned back to his wife, her skin the color of a ripe peach kissed by the sun. "And so be you, Amelia," he said, almost shyly. Amelia blushed and half smiled, then bit her lip and her eyes brimmed. "Your supper is ready," she said with a heavy sigh and brushed a tear from her cheek. "Come and eat, dear." Lawrence's heart wrenched. "Don't cry, Amelia," he said, putting his arms around her. "It'll all come right in the end, dear. Truly, it will." "I'm sure," Amelia said with a lack of conviction. She pushed Lawrence away and returned to the task of cutting the steak and kidney pie she had baked in the kitchen at Bishop's Keep while she finished up her day's work. Lady Catherine made it possible for the Quipleys to sup together at home by giving Amelia the freedom of her evenings except for special occasions. To Lawrence Quipley it might have seemed that life held many promises. Only 2 short years ago he had been a junior footman at Marston Manor, required to carry coals to the grand Marston bedrooms, trim the many Marston lamps, serve as valet to any Marston guest who was without a manservant. It was on such a temporary assignment that he had first served Sir Charles Sheridan, who had recently married the lady who now employed Lawrence's wife, once her personal maid, as her housekeeper. His wife. The word still struck Lawrence with a feeling akin to awe. He and Amelia had been married only 6 months, scarcely long enough for him to become accustomed to lying in bed warmed and scented by her lovely body, or rising to the sunshine of a morning kiss. Lawrence had never imagined himself a married man, and certainly not a married man living in such a palatial cottage with a magnificent Daimler motor car stored in the barn. For such were Lawrence's living arrangement. The Quipleys lived in Lady Catherine's Gate cottage, only a short walk from Bishop's Keep, and a 15-minute bicycle ride from Marston Manor. Lawrence was no longer a mere footman, but what Lord Bradford Marston's chauffeur and mechanic. Unfortunately, Lawrence's automotive responsibilities had to be concealed from the senior Marston, Lord Christopher, whose hostility toward motor cars was so unreasonable that the junior Marston found it politic to deposit his Daimler, with Sir Charles' consent, in the barn at the Gate cottage, where Lawrence maintained it. To complicate matters even further, Lord Bradford, as payment for an outstanding note, had arranged to loan Lawrence to Sir Charles for a time. Hence, Lawrence and Amelia lived in the rose-covered Gate cottage, and Lawrence divided his time almost equally between Lord Bradford's Daimler and Sir Charles's various improvement projects. With this arrangement, Lawrence's prospects had risen substantially. Last winter, Lord Bradford had sent him to the Daimler works in Germany, where he observed every stage of the motor car's manufacture and assembly, from the casting of the block to the packing of the bearings. He had assembled and disassembled every part until he could do it blindfolded, learning how each part worked and why, and what one did when things went wrong, as they inevitably and often catastrophically did. Lawrence could look to the future with confidence, for men with such skills would be in great demand once the automobile came into its own. But of equal advantage to Lawrence was his work at Bishop's Keep. Sir Charles, an amateur photographer of no small reputation, had shown him how to load and unload plates and cut films into dark slides and slide boxes. He learned to mix gold, silver, and uranium into developers and toners, and spent hours under the dim light of the ruby lamp in Sir Charles' dark room, fascinated by the photographic images that gradually appeared on negatives and prints, and then more hours washing, enameling, and varnishing prints to preserve the images forever. But even that did not describe the full scope of Lawrence's duties. Sir Charles and Lady Catherine had been married scarcely a month when Lawrence oversaw the installation of a water system. Then it was the gas plant, an outdoor coal-burning furnace that heated 3 long ovens and a large copper reservoir in which the gases were stored, necessitating gas pipes, valves, and lighting fixtures in the main downstairs room and a gas cooker in the kitchen. This was no sooner completed than 2 wagon loads of machinery arrived, and Lawrence and Sir Charles set to work on the Otto stationary engine. In their hands the machinery came to life, the great piston popping irregularly in the enormous cylinder, the flywheel whirring, the leather belts creaking as they turned the dynamo shaft, magically producing electricity. Lawrence could be forgiven a certain smug pride in his feats, and considering Amelia's recent promotion to housekeeper in Lady Catherine's household, Mr. and Mrs. Quigley seemed justified in believing that life could scarcely be improved any more. But a few days ago this happy situation was jeopardized. Lord Christopher Marston, who had been away for the greater part of the year, was soon to return. Young Lord Bradford, whose relationship with his father was not the best, planned to take up a permanent residence in London, and intended that Lawrence should come and bring the Daimler. Bring Amelia too, he added brusquely. My housekeeper can put her to work, and you may have rooms in the attic. Lawrence had received this news with a stunned silence, Amelia with a torrent of tears. While some country folk might consider going up to London a step in the right direction, the Quibleys knew better. Amelia was heartbroken at the thought of abandoning her new position as Lady Catherine's housekeeper. Lawrence did not want to leave his interesting work with Sir Charles, and neither of them wished to trade their rose-covered cottage and garden for the cramped rooms of a London attic. Avoiding Amelia's tearful look, Lawrence drank his tea and ate his steak and kidney pie, wishing he had not told her about the summons to London. After a bout of tears, she had brightened and suggested what was, on the face of it, the simplest and best solution. Why don't you ask Sir Charles to take you on? Lord Bradford could surely find somebody else to work on the motor car. It would be the best thing, seeing as we've got the cottage. And she had cast a fiercely possessive look around the snug kitchen, with its cheerful blue teapot, the red geranium blooming brightly at the gingham curtained window. "It is not as simple as that," Lawrence said testily. "Lord Bradford has invested a substantial sum in his training at the Daimler Works, and would not happily let him go. Nor did Lawrence feel that he could ask it. "I still don't understand why you won't tell Lord Bradford you're not going," Amelia said now, pouring herself another cup of tea. "It's not like you're a slave, you know, Lawrence. You're free to work where you want." She thumped the teapot on the table with a stormy look. "Where we want. Mark me, Lawrence Quigley, I will not leave me cottage and me duties as a housekeeper to live in London." Lawrence sighed. He loved Amelia. She had a certain independence of spirit that sometimes made it difficult to deal with her. In this instance, her protective instincts toward home and hearth, a woman's deepest and truest instincts, were reasonable and hardly to be denied. And yet, on the other hand, his employer's request was reasonable as well. Indeed, many would say more than reasonable. He had but to tell his wife to pack their belongings, and that would be the end of the matter. Poor Lawrence, his happy and simple life had become so wretchedly muddled, and he could not think how to unmuddle it.